Hey, everybody, welcome back to Advanced Kayak Angler Podcast. I appreciate y'all listening and watching. Kurt, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Man, I'm doing fantastic, man. I am doing fantastic. I got out in the river the other day and got all my, I just recently did all that stuff with my electronics. And
Mm,
man, I felt like had that moment where I'm like, it's all together. I don't need to mess with this anymore. My kayak for this, it's ready to just fish out of it. No more messing or adjusting or putting something else on. I'm like super happy right now.
mm. Cool. I watched your YouTube video. It was great, man. You are wiring much, much better than I am. I usually have to get my buddy Chuck to come over and help me.
Thanks, man. The more I learn about it, the more I like realized how bad of jobs I used to do on my kayak and how crap. No wonder I had problems like in years past.
Yeah.
So it's nice not to have those problems anymore. And I'm trying to help people so they know how not to have their problems either.
Yeah. I haven't asked you. Do you have any sponsor changes this year? Anything new, different?
Yeah, there are there's a few sponsor changes happening this year. I can't quite let them all out of the bag just yet, but there's like one or two changes happening. Nothing major, nothing major. Most of my sponsors are pretty long term.
Yeah. Cool.
How about you?
Yeah, I joined this year. I left. I was with Bucks Island, a great shop, more of a boat shop than a kayak shop, but they're growing here in Alabama, and I was happy to help them while I was with them. But this year, I'm on the dugout team. Hadn't posted or anything yet, but this will post next week. But I got like my today. I got my like jersey, the thing where you approve it and all that. So today is like real to me. So I mean, Dugout's such a great team. It's been a goal for mine for years. So to actually join them, it feels pretty legit.
Right on, man. Congratulations. They're big dogs, man. That's like the
Yeah.
the heavy hitting hardcore team, man.
Yeah, it's like whenever you're being in the chat, it's like seeing all these other anglers, and that's why I wanted to do it because, iron sharpens iron. I want to
Yeah.
be around and go against the best and talk to the best and everything else. And yeah, that chat is like just hammer, 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 hammer. It's pretty cool. But speaking of, we got two hammers on tonight. Go ahead and bring them on. We got Jay Wallen and Josh Evans. What's up, guys?
How's it going?
Hello, gentlemen.
Good. A little late, but Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Appreciate y'all being on. But this week we wanted to have y'all on to talk about just everybody has so many commitments, family, work, life, vacations, like Josh is about to go on and everything else. It's hard to do these things. And wanted to kind of get your perspective on it. And I know me and Kurt, I'm sure we have some feelings on it too, because it's really, really tough. But I don't think either one of y'all has been on this show yet. So Josh, we'll start with you, man. Tell everybody who you are.
Yeah, Joshua McEvans. I live out here in Maryland. I'm part of the leadership team for Mid Atlantic Kayak Bass Fishing. Been doing this for, God, probably 10 years now, about 10 years ish. Uh, love getting people into kayak fishing. I love traveling the whole country and seeing my boys and competing against them and losing to them a lot. And, more than anything, just enjoy, everybody talks about community and growing the sport and all that. I just enjoy being around the people. I'm a veteran,
Yeah.
and when I left the military, those bonds, those daily people that you're used to talking to, a lot of them you lose them, and for one reason or another. And so kayaking has kind of given me that again, so to speak. And so I just love doing it, man.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Two OGs of the sport. Jay, how about you, man?
Yeah, Jay Wallen. I'm originally from Pikeville, Kentucky, a little hillbilly town in East Kentucky. Been fishing my whole life, kayak fishing for about I guess about 14 years now. So been at it for a while, but yeah, been around. Yeah, I was in the early days of the Bluegrass Yak Masters, which was where AJ McWhorter cut his teeth being a tournament director and getting things organized. And I was on the ground level with him on that stuff, and still help out now. We've kind of changed our name a long time ago, but we're the Bluegrass Kayak Anglers here in Kentucky, and Yeah, Kurt's repping the BKA. Yeah, that's obviously I travel all over the place and fish everything I can. So been around for a little while.
Kurt, I've never asked you, how long have you been kayak fishing?
Man, I started. I saw a picture from 16 years ago with
Damn.
my first kayak. It was 15 or 16 years ago for my first kayak, and it was just a little crappy sit-in, you know, straight from Dick's Sporting Goods type
Yeah.
kayak, But ask my wife the first time I took it out. She's gonna walk the dog around the lake, and there's a storm moving in, so it was prefrontal. So I get out there, and and honestly, I wasn't very good at fishing, so I didn't understand any of this. But as soon as I hit the water, the fishing was really good. My wife was so pissed because I was out there like as the storm was moving in. She was back at the car for a half hour. The fish are
Mm.
biting. I'm like, I got in so much trouble that night, but it's been a while. It's been a little while.
Damn.
I started with Jay. Honestly, Jay was one of the first guys I met with when it was bluegrass, or not bluegrass, but
Yak Masters,
Yak Masters back in the day. I was
bluegrass Yak Masters. Yep.
I'm coming up on 9 years, and I'm the new guy. That's crazy. So
and how? Hey, go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead, Kurt.
Oh, I was just saying, man, how quickly things are changing now.
Yeah.
It seemed like, and when I first started, everything was moving so slow, and now every year it's like big changes in the industry, big changes in kayaks, big changes in motors, big changes in just there's always something changing. It's really cool to see, actually.
Yeah, this year I got 2 graphs, and now I feel like I'm almost behind the curve of now you've got 2 forward-facing transducers. A lot of people are just going to like one big graph. It's like a never-ending game of catch up of what the ideal or what the new thing is every year.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm happy
Everybody's
with
trying to
what
catch up with Kurt.
No, I don't know about that.
Got to keep up with Kurt.
I think they're
All
trying to
right,
keep up
so
with you.
yeah.
But let's do this. Let's talk about this, man. Let's talk about the working man and how you guys are making full national tournament trail schedules. Because a lot of people, I think the number one thing I hear is that they have other commitments, the time, vacation, just like all the things that Dan said. Let's start with you, Jay. I mean, how are you balancing this stuff?
I wouldn't say that my tournament life is very balanced. I will say I'm extremely fortunate. Number one, my job. I've been at my job for almost 15 years, and I've gotten to the level where I earn a lot of vacation time, and I have a lot of holiday time, and so they're very supportive at work with what I do. Like I, I don't really have to ask off. I just tell them, hey, I'm not coming in for like 4 days, And my boss is like, you got a fishing tournament? And I'm like, yep, going to Florida. And they're like, man, that's awesome. Good luck. Like, they're so supportive of what I do. It's awesome. And then my wife, of course, like, she's been with, like, I kayak fished before I met her. So she knows the whole, get down, and she's very supportive of it. And so I don't really have to worry about time or availability. I just go. I'm lucky.
And I tell you, you did get lucky with your wife, because I've seen her at the tournaments, and she's really amazing, man. She's following them. She's saying like, oh, hey, so and so had a good day. It's like I don't even have to look at Tourney X. I just go talk to her.
she keeps up with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a geologist for the state, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember having you on a show before and talking about it. That's
coal geologist.
Geology in Kentucky.
Coal geology. Like, we have a lot of coal reserves, and so I'm personally responsible. I have a few people that work under me, but I'm responsible for assessing the state's coal reserves. So I keep up with how much we have, what it's worth, who's doing the mining, where the reserves are, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of maps, a lot of maps. Like my day to day is maps and databases, maps and databases.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And Josh, how about you, man?
Well, it's crazy actually. Up until about, I don't know, 3 4 months ago, I was working like 60 70 hour weeks. And between that and my wife going back to work, and now she runs a medical lab at night, so she works from like 10 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. Between that and having the 3 kids at home, it's been very interesting. I will say that. The last, I don't know, probably. Let me start over. The beginning of all the kayak fishing tournament stuff, I switched over from doing bass boat stuff, and I jumped like too deep into it. Was kind of almost disregarding what was going on at home. Just like, hey, I'm gonna be gone for X number of days, and then call and I'd be like, why is she mad? You know what I mean? Um, and so I've learned over the time that, and as I've been married for almost 20 years now, and
Congrats.
it's one of those things where you really have to communicate and really have to find that balance. Like, how am I going to help out at home? How am I going to help, with the responsibilities of the home front end, and obviously also balance the time off from work and still be competitive. Um, and Fortunately, my wife, I fished my whole life. She knows that that's my thing. We were talking the other day about love language, right? What's your love language? And she's like, yours is fishing and kissing those fish, right? And I was laughing. I was like, no, 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 my love language is food. And she's like, no, no, it's fishing. She goes, that's what brings you peace. That's what does everything. And I said, yeah, you're right. And kind of knowing that balance and finding that balance, which is a difficult thing. Um, I saw on KBN the other day that somebody had posted like, how many of you have lost your wife because of kayak fishing or something to that effect. And I kind of laughed at it because there are guys that, like, I do this and this is just what it is. And if you don't like it, tough, right? Or they don't, they show disregard for that. And there's no way to have that balance and be able to do what we do and not communicate and not have that support at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a juggling act. Actually, though, I'm semi-retired now, um, as of like 2 months ago. So it's kind of dope. I have a bunch of little side hustles and everything. Um, but yeah, I can spend a little more time diving into this and still doing all the daddy stuff and all the husband stuff and keep everybody happy.
Heck yeah, man.
Seems like there's a theme here that it's like very supportive wives and family and or
Yep.
work, and with work. I guess you have to have that kind of synergy between your work being supportive and your family being supportive to really make this work.
For sure. Yeah.
I know me personally, I've had to, or my wife has had to sit me down and say, hey, I love you kayak fishing, but I also like spending time with you. And we've had to have a couple conversations like that where I've had to pick and choose which tournaments I'm going to do, so
Hmm.
I can still have time with my wife, and she can still enjoy my presence around sometimes.
I think a good way for a lot of people listening to try and help with that is to try to include your wife and make it a trip. Like my wife and I talked about, she comes with me when it's a destination that she wants to go to. Like Florida, this Florida trip coming up, she's got some friends in Orlando, and it's perfect for us to go down together. I can drop her off with her friends in Orlando, go, 45 minutes down the road, go do my thing, and then when the tournament's over, we link up and go home, and we've made a trip out of it. Granted, we didn't spend a lot of time together, but she's gone to Wisconsin with me. But what I'm getting at is make it a trip, like include her with it. Uh, you know, get her on the road, and it might eat into your pre-fishing time a little bit. You might have to do some things outside of fishing. Once you get to a destination, but it's a good way to include her, and you might get to go to a tournament that you otherwise might have to check out on and say, nope, gotta stay home with the wife. Just try to include her with you and sometimes that'll pan out.
I know for us, like I took my schedule, my wish list, I brought it to my wife, and we sat, and we talked through it, and it's like, okay, this one we have something, like my kid has a hockey tournament, that one's out. But I mean, for the most part, I'm fishing almost all of them I want to, and it's a lot. I mean, this year I'm fishing 17, four national and a bunch of local. So I mean, it's a lot. But for us, the same thing you're saying, Jay. Like we're planning at least three or four with the family are going to be camping trips in Alabama.
There
So
you go.
we're going to make them like family trips whenever we do it. I remember having Matt Ball. I think it was whenever I was with Paddle and Finn, had him on, and you said family comes first. Like I kind of asked that question, like, how are you making the decision of what tournaments you're going to fish and which ones you aren't? And he said, well, family comes first. That's it. And he said it so matter of fact. That's kind of always stuck with me. But at the same time, I know how I am. For me, a lot of like November, December, January, a lot of that I'm taking off for family time. Not, I'll fish a couple times, but that's kind of my 3 months to where I'm not fishing a whole lot, to where I'm just like totally family. And like March, I'm gone every weekend. Like half February to like April's all fishing almost every weekend. It's funny how they all stack up, but I think sometimes you have to be like you have to know what you need to. Like you need to be able to if you have a family, you need to be able to give a lot to your family, but you need to also be able to take some time for yourself. So life is worth living. So, whenever you're hanging out with your family that, you feel like you have your own thing. And sometimes it makes me feel like whenever I'm away from them, like I kind of absence makes a heart grow fonder a little bit, I guess. Like I really appreciate them whenever they're not there. So
I'll
it's
bet
tough.
that especially as my kids have gotten older, they're a lot more aware when I'm gone. And so I'm very conscious of that and kind of, consider that when I do my trips. Obviously, if I'm driving to like Possum Kingdom, right? I'm gonna be gone for like 7, 8 days at least, right? Because that's a day each way just driving. And so, but any other time, I cut my pre-fishing short a day or come back a day early, depending on how I did things like that. I'll get on the phone. I check in with my kids and my wife every night, and my son will be like, "Dad, when you coming home? I miss you." And I can kind of hear his voice crackling a little bit, and I'm just like, "Okay, buddy, I'll be there." You know what I mean? Because that's my guy, right? And as Matt said very eloquently, yeah, family is always first. You know, if my kids ask me to absolutely not go to a tournament or they want me to do something with them, then I'm going to do that. Um, because they're why I'm alive. They're why I do what I do every day. But you did bring up a good point, and that is that you still have to have that balance and that piece for yourself, right? Um, and that's why a lot of us do that kayak fishing, right? To get away from all the noise of life. So um, you know, making sure that my family is also hyper aware of that and understanding what it does for me, not just the physical aspects, but that mental and emotional piece, I think is also extremely important for anybody to do, if they do what we do as much as we do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's funny you guys bring this up because I got a buddy, Mitchell White, and he's not going to do any tournaments this year. Maybe one, maybe two, but probably none because he has two twin kids, and they got to an age where they really started missing them last year.
Mm.
And and I can remember him telling me like he's just like, yeah, I just don't know if I'm going to be able to do any tournaments next year because I said I would do tournaments until my kids got old enough that it would affect them. And he's just like, I gotta stay home now. And it's just like that's kind of the same story with everybody, man. Family first.
Yeah, I'm like I have a 7-year-old who's really into sports, so it's he does travel hockey this time of the year. So I mean, he's only 7, so it's not like a lot of. He's on like the Bulls. It's like the local minor league team. They have travel teams for all the kids, the different levels, and so I'm able to do that this time of the year. But there's going to be a time whenever the spring and all that where he's doing some kind of probably travel sport than soccer or whatever he gets, a field hockey, whatever he gets, lacrosse, not field hockey, whatever he gets. They didn't have that where I'm from. I'm still getting used to it. I do. But yeah, all these
Same here,
sports,
dude.
I know
Yeah.
there's going to be a time where I'm gonna have to spend more time at home. So it feels like I'm run on a clock where in another year or two, there's going to be more commitments where I'll have to fish a little bit less, and that's okay.
I remember as a little kid getting upset when my dad would take off for like a week, and he's like, "Oh, me and the guys are going to Okeechobee," and I used to like cry because not because he was leaving, but because he wasn't taking me like I wanted to go. And then finally, it got to the point where I was old enough, and I started getting to go. But I remember those days, and I can imagine now that at my age, like now, I understand like what he was doing, and it's like I remember being so upset that I didn't get to go, and it felt like he'd be gone for a week, but God, it felt like a month, when you're a little guy and your dad's not home for a week and he's fishing and he calls and tells you fish stories over the phone about all the fish they caught, and it
That's not
just
helping, Dad.
no, it was terrible, man. It was torturous. But yeah, man, families got to come first, man. Especially if you got those kids, man, because that's like you're talking about Mitchell, like Ron Champion's another example of that. Like, he and I used to travel a lot together, and his son Brandon got into high school fishing, and Ron's just like, man, I, I gotta, we gotta do this. Like, I don't have time to do this. And I'm like, I told him, I said, brother, I said, he's only going to be in high school so long. Like, you only get this window right here. Like, you've had kayak fishing on the front of that window. And when those 4 years are up and he's in college, guess what? It's going to be here. Like, that's the cool thing. Like, it feels like you're missing out if you have to go do your family stuff and you're like, gosh, I'm missing out. It's here. It's going to be here. Just because you miss one tournament or two or a whole season, it doesn't matter because it's going to be here waiting for you when you want to pick it up. It's right there. So that's the thing. Like with Ron, I use him as a good example. His son Branton is graduating. What, May, whatever, June, whatever high school graduates. So this fall, like later into the summer, Ron's like, hey, man, he's graduated. Like, I can do this event and this event and this event. And I was like, see, man, like, it's already like that window, it comes and goes so fast. Like, it's, we were just talking about how have we been kayak fishing for 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 years, and it went by in the blink of an eye. Imagine a little window of time for your kids, to do what they do, and before you know it, that's gone. And guess what? Fishing, kayak fishing, it'll be right here waiting for you. So don't look at it as you're missing out. You're just hitting pause and doing more important things. And this game that we like to do, it's not going anywhere. It's going to be right here. So, if you ever have to sacrifice for other things, I try to keep it in perspective and just know that it's going to be there when you're ready for it.
That's a really good point, Jay. Yeah, I wrote an article a while back, called it "Just Like Pops." My pops, Mike Evans. He's no longer with us, but um, my fondest memories as a kid, right, were waking up and the whole routine we had before we went fishing, right, and how all that kind of would unfold every time we went. It was the same type of routine, right, and even I'm 45 now with a horrible memory and a bunch of messed up stuff in my head, and that's still one of the things that just sticks out to me. And I fast forward all these years later to me and my son LJ, and even my twins, Eden and Emma, same thing. They love to fish, and it's like I want them to have those same kind of memories and thoughts, and fond moments where they're just sitting there and out of nowhere they get a stupid smile on their face because they remember that silly moment where dad told them to cast at the buoy until they hit it and then they could fish or something. That's kind of stuff my dad used to do with me, right? And that's what really helps keep it in perspective and dial it back. So I'm like, you know what, this is where I need to be. you know um I've definitely toned way back done a lot more local stuff and stuff close to home over this last 2 seasons, especially last season between the neck surgery and just the family in general. Um, the priorities had to change. And I want them to have those same kind of memories. And like Jay said, God, high school is gonna come and go, and then what, right? They're gonna be off in college or doing their own thing, and then I'll be like, "Damn, I wish I could take them fishing," you know? And that opportunity is now a lot more fleeting and a lot more difficult, so
Damn, we're getting all emotional in here. The like if somebody's listening, I know for me, one of my big struggles is I never have enough vacation time. Like it's just never enough time. Any suggestions to people out there? Maybe I don't know, something that you've had to do with vacation time, like maybe any tips with tournaments of how like traveling or trying to get around vacation time and things like that. Y'all have any tips you can give anybody about that?
I'll tell you what, I did retail management for a bunch of years, and that was always a struggle, right? So a couple things to try and work, right? One, you realize your pre-fishing time is going to be a lot smaller because you want to stretch that time out as much as possible. So, trying to do a lot more map study online and different things like that, so you can kind of get an idea of where you want to start rather than just going in blindly. We all do that anyways, but amplify that. Um, See if you can roll your sick time and use it like vacation days. That's another thing, right? A lot of bosses are pretty cool with that. Some companies not so much, but try doing that. And then prioritize, right? Plan and prioritize. What events do you absolutely feel like you have to be at to achieve what you want to achieve on the water? If it's not at the top of that list or close to the top of that list, it's not a priority, right? Granted, none of it's a priority in the grand scheme of things, but as far as this subject goes, um, what's most important to you, and also, is that job important to you? Because at the end of the day, if you ain't paying the bills, you ain't going fishing anyway, bro. So,
That's right.
keeping that in mind, and eventually it gets easier. You get more vacation days like Jay, and eventually you can just be like, hey, I'm going fishing. And they'll be like, all right, then. And maybe not. Maybe it's going to come later. But like Jay said, also, it'll be there whenever that time is. So patience is really important in all of it too, I'd say.
Having a good relationship with the people you work with, you know what I mean? So they don't feel like when you're going to a tournament, you're just dumping all the work on them. You know what I mean? That's huge, because if your coworkers feel that way, then your boss is going to feel that way too, right? And then that leads into conflict and stress and things getting in the way, more getting in the way of fishing, versus them understanding and being like, man, that's awesome. How can we help facilitate you getting to these tournaments, doing well at them? I just think that's, so many things in life come around good communication, right? I think this is just one of those times where it's like you have to be able to communicate with your workspace or your job, or however whatever you do for a living, to be able to make these things happen.
I'm going to be a little bit. I'm going to be a little bit more obvious. Sorry, Kurt. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, bang energy drinks and driving through the night, baby.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, what's one time that you did something ignorant trying to get back to work? Like, do you have a story about that? Because I know that Harris chain, as soon as the tournament's over, I got to hit the road to get back to.
Yeah.
Luckily, I can work from home some days, so that Monday I'm working from home. So I'm gonna roll in town, juiced up, hopped up on Red Bulls, and wake up, not get much sleep, and work from home at least.
I've pulled in the driveway at daylight, just like eyes bugging out of my head, cracked out on energy drinks, just like, just volume on 50 on my truck, windows down, just wild. Pulling in the driveway at 6 a.m. My wife's getting up to go to work, and it's just like I'm all right. I'm probably gonna have a heart attack later, but I'm okay right now. Like, no, I've left work. I live in Central Kentucky. I've left work at 4 in the afternoon, 5 in the afternoon, gone home. Already had my truck kind of packed, but then come home, throw the kayak in the truck, and then I drove to it was Lake Seminole, and I pulled in the parking lot at like I don't know, like 4 in the morning or something like that. Went straight to the boat ramp. I knew right where I was going to go launch and fish, and pulled in the boat ramp parking lot, and just like I couldn't even always sleep. It was terrible. It was like I mean, I only had like 3 hours till daylight, but it was like the longest 3 hours of my life. I couldn't get comfortable, couldn't sleep, and then when you pull some crap like that, by about 2:30 in the afternoon, you're on the water, just like nodding off, holding your rod, like it's you can do some silly stuff to your body, that's for sure.
That's right.
I'll tell you what, I got a bunch of those stories, but the one that sticks out, think about when Bassmaster had the first kayak championship out on their own PK. And for me, that's like a 26-hour drive, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
And and so I'd worked the day, the day leading up to when I was leaving. I was like, all right, I'm gonna get some sleep. And then something happened. I had to do something with the kids, and then I was like, oh shit, I still got more gear I got to get together, and just get in the truck. And I left about 4 or 5 hours later than I wanted to, right? Already had worked the full day. I drove straight through, right? And I mean, I stopped a couple times a lot of times for smoking a cigarette and, walking around. And I went through a case of like 12 monsters, I think, on the drive. Yeah, my kidneys were hating me, dude, like, they were screaming the whole time, and then I get there, and I'm staying in a house with, like, Lambert and, Mark Pendergraph and a bunch of them fools, right? My people, and so, it's straight to the water, and then once we get off the water, straight to the bar, and, so, it was a good, like, 36 hours, I think, of just going and going hard, and then I remember I just laid on the bed and I woke up and it was, 12 hours later, I think, and I was like, It's still pre-fishing, right?" Like, "Well, what day is it?" Um, and then, we did our routine of doing way too much the whole time we were at PK, and, I called my wife and I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna start the drive back," right? Well, Mark and Joe McElroy, they were both in contention to win, and, Lambert calls me from Dallas or from Fort Worth, and he's like, "Hey, man, the boys, one of them's about to win this. We're gonna go party tonight at Stockyards." And I say, "All right, let me call my wife." So I call Rita and I say, "Hey, honey," I say, "Hey, one of my best friends is gonna win it. I gotta be there. I'm gonna stay and see it, and then we're gonna celebrate tonight, and then I'm gonna head home." She's like, "Okay, be safe, whatever." So went to Fort Worth and rocked out like crazy all night and did a bunch of stupid things I shouldn't have done. And then next day it was that, however many that 20 something hour drive turned into a 36-hour drive because I was so beyond exhausted from the week of just go, go, go. And a couple of times I literally caught myself at the wheel, like, and I was like, oh God, you know what I mean? Windows down, radio bumping, crushing monsters like they were water again, and nothing was helping. And I had to like pull over, get a room and sleep for a while, um, kind of get a reset. And then I was still exhausted the rest of the drive home. And it was, I'll never go that hard again. Like it was just too much. Now if it's something far like that, I'm gonna fly in and borrow a kayak from one of my people because that's just, insane.
I'm really lucky I didn't get into kayak fishing whenever I was young. Like the 10 years I was in the Air Force, if I would have been kayak fishing instead of doing that, God, I would have done some ignorant shit. Like I can't even imagine what I would have done.
Yeah, I mean, I had an
I didn't
experience
have
with
all this
like,
white hair. Oh, go ahead, Kurt. My bad.
yeah, you go ahead. Go ahead, man.
I was gonna say I didn't have all this white hair in my goatee until I started kayak fishing. I don't know if it's a related thing or what, but bro, I had all black right here before. I don't know.
Lambert will do that to you.
I believe it.
Where you
I don't know
at?
how Jordan I don't know how that whole crew does that, man. I'm too old for all that now.
It's a lot of conditioning.
Yeah, yeah.
You got to train for that. I had an experience like that too. Like I had I was doing some rehab work for a lady, and we were doing her bathroom, and the TOC came up, and and we ran it. Of course, you run into some stuff that pushed the job back a little bit, and it got to the point where I had to tell her I was leaving for the TOC, Well, of course, that's in November. People want their house for Thanksgiving and they want their house for Christmas and they don't want it to be a construction site. So I promised her I'd be there on Monday morning, like at 8 a.m. So as soon as I got off the water, even if I would have won, I still would have had to drive back that night from the TOC because I had promised this lady I'd be back to finish her bathroom. And that's what I had to do. I had to drive all night to get home, slept a couple hours, got up, went to the job site, and it's just one of those things you have to do sometimes. I mean, if you're working, just not, it doesn't always fit in ideally.
Yeah. Speaking of kids, there's one right there. So for like if you're fishing all these events, how do you know whenever is there a signal your wife gives you is like that's enough? Like it's how do you know? Like I think nobody some guys just like, hey, to heck with it, let's get divorced. But is there a time where you know that's too much?
I can kind of feel it. Like I've learned, for me, I think it's best to spread it out as much as possible. Like it's hard. It's hard because a lot of the best tournaments are, they're in that March, April, May window. We all know, and they're tempting. You know what I mean? It's like, gosh, that one's so good. That one's so good. That one's so good. Like I want to do all those. Well, it's to me, I found it's better to like pump the brakes a little bit. There's tournaments in the summer. There's tournaments in the fall. Like spread it out a little bit. Don't, you know, you can load up. You can be top heavy on the front end of the year, but when it's every weekend for like a 6 week stretch, that's when they start getting pissed off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you've got like a couple of a tournament and then a week off and maybe like a local tournament where you don't have to go spend the night, you just like a 1 day local, you go drive and you come home. You're home by Saturday night, you can take her out to dinner or something. Spread that stuff out so that your big traveling tournaments are spread out throughout the year, and I think you'll be all right on that front. It's when you back them up 5, 6, 7 in a row, and you're gone for 2 months. That's when they get a little pissy.
Yeah.
Understandably so.
Agreed. Over all these years, I've learned to try to mitigate some of the things that cause her to get pissed while I'm gone. Like I get my honey-do list done before I go. Um, I have little powwows with all three of the kids, and I'm like, yo, if you fight, if you pick on each other, if you fuck with each other, if you do any of these things, there's gonna be issues when I get home. Because if your mom calls me pissed off, then that's gonna impact how I do in the tournament. So help me help you, please, right? And they're like, all right, dad. And then they still fight, but like they're a little more chill about it, right? Um, but if she calls me, I can hear it in the tone in her voice, and I'm like, oh, all right. And she'll ask me how I'm doing, and I'll have to tell her like, oh, I'm getting crushed right now, or I'm in the top 10, but it's day one, so who knows? You know what I mean? And when I hear how she responds to that, I know, okay, I need to really, when I'm done, head home, or I can kind of BS and mess around. And as Jay said, like I'm really careful on how I schedule my tournaments. There's some that I'm like, God, I'm gonna miss that one, but at the same time, oh, my anniversary is this weekend. I'm not going. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
If it's something that's coming up on a big day, my family always loves to celebrate my birthday, right? And October 19th is going to be the native big bass on the Susky, and so like stuff like that, I'll let her know. I just let her know like day before yesterday, hey babe, by the way, we're gonna celebrate my birthday a week early because on my birthday I'm gonna be fishing a tournament. And she was just like, all right, cool, oh yeah, fish sticks. That's what she calls my love for fishing is fish sticks, right? And so, you know, um, trying to give her that warning ahead of time and let her know so she can be prepared. And if she's still pissed about it, then I buy her tattoos. She likes
I
tattoos,
like it.
so yeah,
I
I like it.
found
It
that
looks nice.
I found that the balance for me was every other weekend, right? As long as I didn't exceed the every other weekend too often, like I can sometimes, but you know, like Jay said, when you have 4 in a row, 5 in a row, Man, that's when I found the issues to arise for me, and I've just and now I just plan it that way, and I've cut out a lot of local tournaments because for me, being in Ohio, local means traveling, so I still miss out on a day or two, and I can't make it home for dinner, to take her out on a Saturday night, so it is like losing a big chunk of the weekend. So these are, some people want to call them sacrifices. To me, it's not a sacrifice. It's just
Yeah.
it makes everything easier. It makes my whole life easier this way.
Yeah. Buy her something too. Like if for real, come home with a gift or two. Like, dude, I tell you, one of the simplest things. Kurt, you were with me. We were in a gas station at Santee Cooper, and I'm pretty sure it was Santee Cooper. Yeah, yeah, it was Santee Cooper. Remember the gas station that had the dog?
Yeah, yeah.
You got her a
I
dog
bought
at the gas
no,
station?
no, 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 no. I bought a. I went in there and bought a drink or something, but they had some like local, like really nice jarred local honey, and
Oh, I
I bought her
remember
like
that.
a.
Yeah.
I just bought her a jar of honey, and she was. I came home with a jar because she likes honey in her tea and stuff, and like whatever she likes honey, and I was just like, perfect. I'll take that. So buy them a little something. They love that.
I'm doing that.
Come home with a little something.
I,
It doesn't have to be much. Like I came home with a jar of freaking honey, and she was all about it.
that's
You know?
solid advice right there. I'm doing
Yeah.
that from now on.
Yeah.
I
Everyone should
think
be
for,
taking notes on that.
yeah, I think for me, like anytime I'm away, like I have to suck, even if I'm sucking it up in the tournament, like I have to suck it up and tell my wife I'm having a good time. Like I could be having the worst time and I still, oh yeah, I'm having a great time out here with my
It's great.
friends. Yeah, like she doesn't care how you most of the time how you're doing. I mean, she does. She wants you to do well, but and she wants to root you on, but she just wants to know that while you're away, you're enjoying yourself. Like there's some value in being away. You're not just going and just going to be angry whenever you come back. Like you have to, put on a smiling face and yeah, I had a great time, even if you didn't.
and
You
well, and
know,
this is
that's
one.
actually go ahead.
This is one of the you just hit on one of the things I feel like is important is surround yourself with people you like and good people. So you are having a good time, even if the tournament isn't going your way.
Yeah.
Because honestly, it bugs myself when I leave town. I spend a bunch of money. I don't have a good time, and whatever happened in the tournament wasn't good. And I come home, I feel like God. What a waste, man. What a waste. I didn't even have a good time. And I learned that early on that you just got to be around the right people and have the good mix of people around you that help lift you up. So it is a good time. So you're not ever wasting money. You don't ever feel like you're wasting time being away from your family. Because you guys with kids, I feel like there's even more pressure. I don't have kids, so I don't feel that pressure, but I see it in my friends, and I see how much it weighs on them being away from their family
Yeah.
more
Same
so than
here.
it does me.
Yeah, man, it's definitely a challenge. You hit the nail on the head with it though. It's like surround yourself with the right people, you know. I don't know of a tournament I've ever traveled to where I haven't had an absolute blast. And aside from a lot of the local or the national stuff that's come into my backyard where I've killed it, I haven't done well on the national scene. Not anywhere near where I'd like to. And but I always go and have a damn good time because of the people I surround myself with. And I remember I used to do like videos when I'd go to the KBF national championships, right? I'd do like Facebook lives and I'd be so hyped going there. And then the ones back were like I've watched them after the fact and I've seen just how drained I look and how just like, yeah, man, I couldn't do it, da 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 da, and how down on myself I'd get. And my wife, she actually grabbed me. She's like, "Dude, are you having fun?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm having a kick-ass time." Why? And she goes, "It doesn't seem like it. Like you're coming home pissed off because you didn't do well, and this and that." She goes, "If you're not having fun, don't do it." And I was like, "Well, I'm having a great time." She says, "Well, okay, then think about it that way. Don't think about the fact that you lost or got your ass kicked because that's going to happen more often than not, right?" And so the last few years, especially, I've really changed my perspective on how I go into tournaments and how I walk away from them. More importantly, I think that's been a big thing, really, right? Because if we're not having fun, why the fuck are we doing it? Sorry, I don't know if I can cuss, my bad, but
No, you're
it
good.
is what it is, you know? Like, for real, like, why do it if you're not having a good time and getting what you started why you started it? If you're not getting that out of it still, don't keep doing it.
100%. Yep.
I
No,
get
there's
it. That
very
that's
few
a tough one
people.
for me. Yeah.
There's very few people that are like making real money at this. Like,
Yeah.
don't make it about the money, and like, don't make it about I have to finish here, I have to do this. Like, you got to have goals, but like at the same time, you better be doing this because you love it. Because like Josh said, like, and Kurt knows, I know, like, the wins and the checks, they're more often than not, you're going home without those things. Like,
Yeah.
it's just the way it is. Like, there's some people that go on heaters and you go on streaks, but you're gonna have those stretches where you're just like, you can't do anything right, and you got to put that stuff aside and just enjoy the ride. Enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah, like Jay said, I mean, how many people are really making a living at kayak fishing? Four, five, I mean, a handful of people, I mean, I honestly don't know the exact number, but who are doing it in the tournament scene, I'd probably say there's very, very few.
Very few.
It's also a very, like, I guess that's a good thing to talk about too, is like like Jay was saying, your goals. Like, you're not going to be it's so hard to, like, to have that lifestyle. I don't know those people I know of that also have, like, a family, or, and there might be. I mean, Ron, he's done great. That, not that it's impossible, but it's very difficult to have balance. Like today, I was listening to the Mercer podcast, and Rick Clunn was talking about whenever he was younger, he was dedicated and selfish, and he was, felt like he was at the best he could be, but he was missing the balance of his life. And that's why some guys, whenever they get older, they're looking for more. They realize that the family life is really important too, as well as the tournaments and everything else. So trying to find that balance of, right now I'm not at the time where I'm not going to be, one of those five people. That's okay, because I have a lot of great things going on here that make my life complete. It's not just about that. So having some kind of perspective and your goals is important too, rather than just having super lofty expectations of, I'm going to win, you know, angler of the year or whatever it is.
Yeah, and this is a tough sport too, man. I mean, we all talk about all the great people in it and stuff, and there are just amazing people in the sport. But let's face it, man, it can be a meat grinder too, man. If you let the pressure of the tournaments get to you, and the pressure of the competition, because everyone who's going to be at the Harris chain is going to be trying to win. I doubt that there's going to be more than two people down there who are like, I'm just here for a good time, and I'm okay.
I hope there's a bunch. Oh, Kurt, here, let's get him back. Here we go. Oh, there we go.
Am I here?
Yeah, you're here.
Okay, good. But there's just so few people, you just don't let it turn into a meat grinder, man. Don't let the pressure, because everyone's trying really hard, man. I mean, I know I'm trying as hard as I can. When I put down $300 for a Hobie event, I'm doing everything I can to win. Just, everything within the rules, no cheating, none of that stuff, but everything in the rules I'm doing to win. And I know every competitor is doing the same thing. And if that's all you think about is like where you're going to place, how good you're doing, where am I in the standings, am I above so and so who's my competition? Man, this you're going to get burned up quick. You'll be here for a year, 2 years, and then you'll be like, oh, then it'll just disappear. And I'm sure we all know some people who are like that. Um, but that's another thing that's about that balance, man. Have those, like you guys are saying, have those expectations, have those goals set, but then be realistic about it and make sure that you're planning this in such a way that you're enjoying. Because if you're not, I mean, you're spending a lot of money to be miserable.
Well, I hate to say it, but I guess the last topic is money. Like family money, money with fishing. God help us, it's so expensive. Like any tips, any advice, anything y'all can give to anybody on the topic since y'all been doing it for so long.
Go ahead, Jay.
Jay's a baller, so it's
I
okay, you know.
got a bunch to say on it, but go ahead, Jay.
Uh, man, sponsors mean a lot. It helps. It helps a lot. And I don't mean like discounts and product because you can't put a fishing reel in your gas tank. But like sponsors go a long way. Um, I have an LLC, and so I try to funnel everything fishing through J. Walvin Fishing LLC. And what that does for me is it allows me to write off a lot of stuff so that, you know, I try to show a loss so that it's kind of a finagly way, but you're not really, I'm trying to think how to say this. You're never going to save yourself enough taxes on money to make it to where I'm not saying this right, but you'll never be able to write off enough to make the savings worth it, if that makes any sense. Like, so you can't get crazy with that stuff, but it does help if you can divert all of your funds through an LLC and maybe show loss, especially if you have sponsor dollars coming in, or you sell a kayak or something. It kind of helps in that regard. Um, Man, these things are expensive, and it's not the tournament itself; it's the travel. It's the travel expenses. It's the fuel. It's the lodging. It's the you know, like Kurt and I are getting ready to make plans for Harris Chain, and man, it's not the entry fee. Like it's the lodging and the fuel and the you got to eat. Like it's all that stuff rolled into one. If you can find a way to make it just pinch pennies on your lodging and your travel, that's where you're going to save your bucks and be able to pull some of this stuff off. But I have an LLC and I try to funnel everything I can through it. So that's that's my little tips and tricks. But it's easier said than done. I'll say that.
Yeah, for sure.
And at the end of the day, it still comes out of my pocket. Like whether or not I want to put a fancy little LLC label on it and pretend like it's somebody else's money, it's not. It's still coming. It's still coming out of my pocket. So I mean, that's really just a shell game for the government. So
Real similar to what Jay said. All that, making your money work for you. Also find a side hustle, right? Something that I like to do is like flip baits and other fishing gear. Specifically, like so, you guys know what an Excalibur XRK50 is, right? I know Jay does.
Oh yeah.
Damn sure he does. But um, back before right before Excalibur decided to shut down and do the rebranding and all that under, with Pradco and
Oh yeah.
Booyah,
Yeah.
a buddy of mine gave me a heads up on it, and because he knew I loved throwing them. He said, "Dude, we got to start buying them all out, right? Buy everyone you can find." And I was like, "You know what? That's a great idea." I ended up with like over 3,500 of them or some craziness. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like I'm talking buy them for like $1.50 to $3 max a piece.
oh
Okay.
my god.
Yo, yes, exactly. Um, the first, I think, 6 years of me kayak fishing tournament, all the national championships, all the fuel, all the everything, 100% covered through those baits, right? Flipping those baits. And I didn't do all the astronomical prices you see on them now, but I double, triple, quadrupled what I paid for them. Um, and then some of the limited run colors, well, obviously those went a lot further. But I paid for, like I said, the first 5 or 6 years of all tournament entry fees, all traveling, everything through flipping baits, whether it be those Excaliburs or end of winter closeout sales at Dick's and buying out full racks
Yeah.
of all their, Strike King cranks or whatever it might be, right? And still flipping them at less than retail, but still doubling what I spent on them.
Josh, I got a good story real quick on the
Yeah,
Excalibur. Ron and I were in Sweden and for the Hobie Worlds, and we went into a
I
little
think I remember
tackle
that post.
shop. Dude, there was a bin of like basically a clearance bin. Dude, we found all kinds of Excalibur stuff. Ron and I were like just picking it. We bought all kinds of it, all kinds of
Going
it. We didn't know
crazy,
how
right?
much they were because it was like 75 krona, which is like $3 or something like that. Like we
Right,
didn't really know how much they were, but we knew they were cheap, and we were buying every one we could find. But it was wild to go to Sweden and just find because they didn't know, they had no idea what that stuff was. Like it was just
right.
some junk they had, you know. But
Well,
we were scalping it.
I remember seeing that post actually and being like, "Yo, hook it up." um, right before they went public that they were closing shop and doing the rebranding though, I had been pestering my local Dicks and they had just recently had opened up, right? I had been pestering the fishing shop or department manager like, "Yo, buy some Excaliburs, you'll sell them, right?" And I told him. He's like, I ordered him. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, then he got fired, right? So the next guy came in, and I'm like, yo, I don't know what the guy before was doing, but dude, order these baits. I'm telling you, you'll sell them, right? And then so he did, and they ended up getting like two end caps. Like each peg had like maxed out like 10 baits or 12 baits. I don't even remember, right? But it was like an entire two end caps full of them. And they got to the point where they had so many of them and then I heard about the discontinuing, right? And I was like, I went in and I talked to the manager and I'm like, yo, I didn't talk to the fishing store. I talked to the store manager, right? And I was like, dude, you guys got like kind of overabundance of these baits now, right? And he was like, yeah, man. He goes, I just want to get rid of them. He had already put them on clearance, and I was like, dude, how much for all of them? I was like, better yet, how about this? I was like, they were like 350 a piece on clearance, right? And I was like, I'll give you 275 a bait, and I'll buy all of them. And he was like, sold. And I was like, "Yo, you're kidding me, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, no, I'm serious. Like, I want to get them out of my store." Okay, cool. Bag them up, bring them up, let's go. And like that started that that chain. And then like for like months after that, I was just like going to every tackle shop I could find in 100-mile radius, buying them out of anything Excalibur, and then anything else on clearance, and then just flipping it. I still got old bins, man. I remember some of the old KBFNCs, man. I would be like, "Hey, I'm gonna be out in the parking lot where people are selling doing the swap meet, and I'm gonna be selling baits out of the back of my truck." And I'd pull out these big totes, and people just come start grabbing stuff up. And it's like, dude, like that. Honestly, and I hate to even say it because I don't want a bunch of people doing it, but there's so many people on the internet. It's so huge, it doesn't matter. Like if you can get stuff at way below retail and sell it for still below retail and make profit, do it. Like it's easy money. And
Yeah.
as you guys know, I think Kurt, I saw you post about plastics the other day, about like buying them and having all these nice plastics and having you haven't touched any of them, right? Hell, I still got some of those gobies that Eric Martinez made that I haven't thrown yet, still, and right?
I got some of those.
No, I know you do. I know. And but that's what I'm saying. Like you hit it up the nail on the head. People are gonna buy a tackle if it looks good or if they think it'll catch fish, whether they're even gonna ever use it doesn't matter. They're gonna buy it. So find that side hustle whether it's flipping baits or, you know, really building your online presence or your social media presence, your fishing resume and presence and gaining those actual dollar sponsors rather than just product discount sponsors. Like all those things are huge in helping make this possible.
I tell you a good one too. You kind of got me thinking is what a lot of people don't think about these days is the old school yard sale. If you see a yard sale, swoop in. You never know, man. You never know. Somebody got divorced, somebody died, and some lady's trying to sell her old man's fishing stuff. She doesn't know what this stuff is. Throws a bunch of stuff out on the table, and you never know what you'll run into. So, like those old school yard sales are the best. Estate sales, all that stuff, man. You can find all kinds of high end fishing equipment that people are selling for cheap because they don't know what it is. They don't care. They just want it gone, just like that store manager. They're like, I don't care. I want it gone. And so, old school yard sale, man. I'm a sucker for a good yard sale.
But
I
something
stop
I
at every
do,
one.
I hope nobody does it around this area because I love to do it. But every winter, I'll buy at least a couple of kayaks. Like in the winter, you can get kayaks for cheap. Like it's people aren't kayaking. They're like, I have this big plastic thing. I don't want this. Like I bought two Jackson Cruise 12s for $800 that were in great condition. I mean, it's not like a ton of money, but I know they're worth 600 a piece. So it's a like it's a few $100s I got to spend on fishing stuff, and all I have to do is just keep them in my garage for 3 or 4 months. It's not that big of a deal. I like Josh was saying, I do furniture too, like mid-century furniture. Like I bought, I'm kind of a mid-century furniture nerd, but I bought this piece for $500 and I just sold it for 1,000. But I had to drive 2 hours to go deliver it. But it was an easy $500, and that money I just kept for me for my fishing stuff. So I do. It's funny because I never thought of it that way, but I kind of do little side hustles to make a little extra fishing money too.
It's important, man. It's important to have some way to fund this because it's
Yeah.
expensive. If you're going to use national ones, it's expensive. For me, I just found that having a budget, and that way I knew like I was never overspending, and I could always spend up to a certain limit, and it would never affect anything. You know what I mean? So in the actually like last week, I set my budget for the year. I have this amount of money to spend, and that's all I'm going to spend. And when that runs out, it runs out, and that's just the way it is. But like Jay said, man, if you can manage a good sponsor that can afford to give you some money and that you're going to provide them a service, to so that they feel like they're getting something for their money, that's like the win-win. And having a side hustle and setting a budget, I mean, having those things in place, I feel like it takes some of the pressure off the season,
Yeah, for
of
sure.
trying to hustle and trying to figure things out versus trying to figure them out as you go and you're just kind of limping around from tournament to tournament. Like, how am I going to afford this one? And you don't feed your dog for a week so you can go. I mean, that's not, can't do
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Give the dog some food.
Better the dog than the kids, right?
Exactly.
Unless the
Exactly.
dog tries to eat the kids, and then you're in trouble. Yeah.
Are they
All right.
bad
What?
kids?
Yeah. Well, that's it. We kept y'all an hour. I thought it was really interesting. Great show. Really appreciate y'all being on. But want to give you a chance to shout out any sponsors. Just talking about sponsors. Anybody who makes fishing easier for you. Josh, we'll start with you, man.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you guys having us on. This subject in particular is kind of near and dear to my heart, you know.
Yeah.
And so it's cool that you actually approached me and say, "Hey, like we want you to come on, and this is what we want to talk about." And I was like, "Yo, like that's crazy because this particular subject is on my mind a lot." Um, but as far as like who I want to thank, obviously my wife Rita and my kids, they're huge supporters of everything I do. Sometimes a little begrudgingly, but overall, they're there for for daddy to be happy, right? And then sponsor wise, Jackson Kayak, they've been with me since darn near day one as far as the kayak tournament scene goes. Huge supporters of mine and something I really believe in. iRod Fishing, amazing fishing rods. P-Line, Malone Trailers, Yakima Racks, um, Bending Branches, and there's a few others that really do help me along the way, but those ones primarily really help me do what I do and do it effectively. So thank you.
Nor a big rig.
Big rig. It's crazy actually. I was on the group of folks that designed the NAR and I love it, but the big rig is just so damn stable and oh. But honestly, the Kusa X over both of them, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
I ran that this past season. I'm running it again this season. Um, Great river platform and super versatile and open. I dig it, man. I dig it a lot.
Cool. Jay, how about you, man?
Definitely Hobie Fishing, St. Croix Rods, Lowrance, Spro. Um, I got some smaller guys. Those are my big ones these days. Along with Spro, I guess is Gamakatsu and Sunline. I tell you what, man, one of the most expensive consumables that I go through is fishing line, and getting a good line sponsor will save you a ton of money. So, um, no particular brand. I like Sunline, but there's a lot of good brands out there. But fishing line is very expensive, and if you're tournament fishing the right way, you're going to go through a lot of line, and that stuff is not cheap. So if you can get a good line sponsor, you can save yourself a lot of money.
And Kurt, how about you, man? I'll help you pay the bills here.
I gotta think Hobie's helped me out a lot. I gotta thank those guys. Torpedoes helped me out a lot. Fishing on lines helped me out a lot. Picasso lures has helped me out a lot. Um, I feel like I'm forgetting some. Oh, Yak Attacks helped me out a lot. All these guys help set the foundation for your season. And I can't thank them enough myself.
Yeah, okay. I was looking at those Yak Attack, the boxes, like the double
Mhm.
stack little boxes today. I was thinking about getting some of them. They're pretty cool.
Those are sweet, man. You can set them
They
up so
are.
many different ways.
Are they waterproof?
No, it's more like water resistant.
Yeah.
If you threw them in the lake, their water would get in. But like they're kind of rain protected, like
Yeah.
how the lid shuts on them. But water can still get in them. I mean, I wouldn't put anything in there you want it to be in a dry box.
Yeah. But great for
And
a lot of things for sure.
Oh yeah, all like lures and stuff, and you can attach
Yeah.
it right to the rail and have a little lure box right there that you can close. And
That's
yeah,
kind of what I was thinking, like keeping the things like I don't mean to get into this, but keeping the things I was going to use for that day, like a couple extra jigs, shaky heads, whatever it is, just keeping that day's go-to things so I don't have to go back in the box for them. I thought, man, that'd be a great way to store them.
yeah, exactly. And you could have two of them too, right? One for your
Yeah.
line and cutters, and then one for your baits and terminal tackle, or however you want to, you can organize with them.
Okay. There we go. Track pack. That's what they're called.
That's what they're
But
called.
all right. I appreciate y'all listening, and we'll see y'all again next week. Later.
Thank you.